Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of In the Eyes of Truth. We've got Robert Barnes back, constitutional lawyer, one funny guy, and we were just discussing what to do with Trump because he won't give us any peace. I mean, my suggestion was somebody give him a tranquilizer, maybe, at least knock him out for a few days of sanity in this world. Who knows? Peace may break out by that point. Um,
Or maybe bring back the actual Trump. This robot simulation version is not working out so well. This replacement version. The I knew people that thought Biden had been replaced. A bunch of crazy theories. Or just stick him down in the White House film room. Let him to be the pretend president.
green
And
screen him
let
all the way around.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Have just people cheering him constantly, saying he's genius, telling him that he's winning everything everywhere. And just
Well,
keep
they're
him
already
away
doing
from.
that. Wait a minute. They're already doing that to him.
Well, I mean, they've gone to great lengths to do that. They've told pollsters that they have to do fake polls. They're on the right. Barry Weiss is happy to do that at CBS. So they
Oh,
took a
really?
YouGov poll. YouGov did a poll, same panel of people. The Economist printed one result. A day later, CBS printed the exact opposite result. So, I mean, it's just overt manipulation. And now, of course, the Ellisons are going to own CNN. So you're going to have CBS, CNN, HBO, Warner Brothers, Paramount, all owned by basically Israel, the
Um,
Israeli lobbyist group.
Wasn't there something about monopolies and breaking
Yeah.
monopolies up, let alone
Well,
monopolies owned by I'm sorry, by the owner class of Washington? What am I thinking? Foreigners or something like that.
well, that's why they removed about a month ago Gail Slater from the antitrust division. She was an ally of Vice President Vance. They didn't want her to stop this from going through. There's unregistered lobbyists that are making millions of dollars on the deal. In 3 or 4 years, it may sink the Ellisons altogether because of the scope of criminality that went into that deal. Because the DOJ is likely now to turn a blind eye and let the merger go through. There may be a state court challenge to it because of these undisclosed lobbyist connections. It came out today. A lot of them are connected to two people. One is Mike Davis. Another one is a guy by the name of Arthur Schwartz. And it came out today how he and Laura Loomer and others have been neck deep in illicit pay-for-play pardon schemes. That,
I
why,
just read about. I was going to bring that up. You just beat me to the drum. I was going to say there's a lobby industry now for pardons. And you just beat me to that. It's just like I was
and
waiting for you
that's
to stop. I was going to bring that up. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and that's always existed at some level. It's
Oh,
just got crazy in this first year. Basically, everybody around Trump decided to make it a huge cash grab. That's why Kristi Noem finally got sacked because I'd been warning for 6 months that she was doing sweetheart no bid deals. People are calling her Grifty Christie, no bid Noem. There's a
no
meme
bit
going around.
gnome.
There's a meme going around that has her husband, Mary, then a photo of Corey Lewandowski, says, screw him, and sleep with him, and then a picture of a dog, shoot it. So but it was, you're talking about $250 million worth of fraud scams that she was just giving out left and right. The,
Wow, serious for
uh,
$250 million. No, that's not
yeah,
bad. A
I
little
mean,
retirement fund.
and that doesn't even deal with all this. Now, what I'm curious about, the Trump family has been cutting huge deals with two groups, the Israeli lobby group, for which is all gung ho with this. I mean, for personal enrichment purposes. But the other one is
No.
all the Gulf
Personal
Royals.
enrichment?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Never.
even Witkoff and Kushner's side deals are mostly with the Royals, and that's who's getting screwed at the
Oh, yeah.
moment. And so the question is, if there's any motivation for Trump to get out, it won't be peace, it won't be freedom, it won't be American casualties, it won't be civilian casualties. It will be that his whole family might get gutted by the Gulf Royals deciding they're not going to do those deals anymore. You're talking about $500 million in one case. I mean, the Trump in his first term lost money. In this term, he's made more than $4 billion added to his net worth in just the first year,
Wait,
and that does extend to everybody else.
wait a minute. He made $30 billion off the Trump coin, milking MAGA, half of whom can barely read and write, really, realistically speaking. They're pulling him into this a cryptocurrency scam, pump and
Yeah,
dump.
the rug pulls were bad, though. Whatever the
Ah,
rug pulls were for the Melania coin and the Trump coin, none of them compare to the Iran war rug pull. That is the rug pull of all rug pulls for the anti-war part of his base. I mean, there was always a part of his base that doesn't have a problem with the war,
oh
that
yeah.
supported Iraq War II, Iraq War One. That I always compare it to the George Wallace 1968 campaign.
Yeah.
Half the message was bomb them to hell, and the other half the message was otherwise get out. And Trump had both constituencies himself. the machismo crowd
Hmm.
that celebrates death and murder and violence, and the anti-war crowd that was done with this, that was exhausted with it, that was tired with it. The problem is the Republicans can't win without the anti-war vote. And it's going to be already the this Iran war was the last tipping factor. Unless he gets out within the month, then the result is going to be a bloodbath in the midterms. Democrats will win the House, but not only win the House, win it by 240 plus seats. Not only win not only win the Senate, but win it with a cushion, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 net margin. It's going to be just a debacle. He'll get impeached. Hegseth will get.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
Hegseth is bragging about war crimes.
Oh
That
yeah.
yeah. You sink a ship in international waters that didn't have weapons on it. That was there as part of at the invitation of India, and then that's one thing, but then you let the sailors all drown.
Oh,
I mean
that
that's
is a
been
war crime.
axiomatic
That's absolutely.
Geneva Convention for forever. That's not something you can do.
But wait a minute, wait a minute. But international law doesn't matter, except that in the Constitution it's written that if it is confirmed, any treaty confirmed by Congress becomes the land of the law.
Not only that, international law is specifically and explicitly referenced in the Constitution, not only in the form of treaties, but in the law of nations. I mean, that's all
Right.
international law is the law of nations. And the law of nations provides, and then, of course, we are a signatory to the Treaty and Convention on the Seas. So, I mean, we've already been breaching it with hitting the boats in Venezuela, with seizing boats. All of that is in violation of the law of the seas that we are a signatory to, that is the highest law of the land under our own Constitution. But all these people that say, oh, the international law, it's anti-constitutional. No, the Constitution incorporated international law explicitly within it, including defining crimes of piracy, defining crimes of law against the law of nations, an incorporation of it. Vattel's Law of Nations was well read by all of the people who put together the Constitution on the legal side of the founding generation. So he's lost his mind. And I mean, people ask me every kind of question. Has he been poisoned? Is he being blackmailed? Has he been substituted in? Because people can't, like, why would somebody go through 10 years of 2 assassination attempts, 4 indictments, 2 impeachments, 3 efforts to bankrupt him, in which he bragged about how in the first term he did not go to war in Iran, and they indicted him partially over his disclosure of that fact. And now he does something that even George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, and Poppy Bush knew not to do, which is to go into Iran.
Well, my question is, how many little girls did they screw, or boys, and how many little girls and boys did Trump screw?
Well, I mean, it's the bad meme now. Now, I still am convinced because I don't think Trump, if he had ever done anything like that, would have ever brought up, initiated the Epstein files like he did in
Well,
2015. And again in
let's not.
20, well, hear
Well,
me out
listen. Let's
first.
not forget that he also said they don't exist, and we're not gonna. It's a dead
Oh,
guy that nobody needs to talk about.
but he
And it
only
was
did that
Massey that
later.
pushed through.
Yeah, I mean, notice that up until April or in May, the Epstein, he was all on board disclosure of the Epstein files.
Mm.
Then something happened in May. And from that point, there's been a turn all the way through on everything in the administration. And Tulsi Gabbard put out the Director of National Intelligence report in March that said Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. And then all of a sudden in May, we're totally going the opposite direction. And there's Colonel McGregor's speculation is that he cut a deal with the Israel lobby in the fall of 2024
I'm
to
sure.
stop for
Yeah.
them to stop opposing him and to fund him. Maybe that's part of it. It's definitely the case the Israel lobby was purging anybody within the administration that they could that had voiced any skepticism. You're
Yep.
talking about people at the chiefs of staff level, the Pentagon level, all the way through. The people that were working with Hegseth, all the ones that had voiced Israel skepticism, all were purged.
Yep. Yep.
And so I think something happened in March and connected to the Epstein files. And maybe they told him and convinced him, oh, it somehow incriminates you. I mean, what's clear is that it incriminated the Israel First lobby. It incriminated the Rothschilds. It
Yep.
incriminated European royals. It incriminated the intelligence agencies of France, the UK, Israel, and the United States. Um, my hypothesis was that the deep state did a number on him, convinced him that this somehow would badly damage him unless
Hmm.
he played ball, and he started playing ball ever since. But he's become increasingly mad. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
like delusional. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
like if negative information he suppresses, and that's why he's out there saying things like, "I was shocked that Iran hit the Gulf." Well, what? They've been saying this for forever. They're going to
Wait.
hit the
Wait. Wait.
U.S.
Wait.
bases in the Gulf.
Come on. When the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Iran is getting an NBC interview and they asked him this riveting question: how can you justify hitting American bases? I don't know, because they're shooting in Iran. Figure out, oh, how can you justify shooting the guy that's breaking your door in trying to kill your family? Well, actually, in some countries and states in the U.S., that's actually not justifiable. England being
They
one
were,
of them.
by the way, the stories about the Straits of Hormuz, because we had this debate with people inside the White House back in the summer, in which Charlie Kirk was the tipping factor for Trump to pull back on going into regime change. But back then, were all convinced that Iran would not do anything to close the Straits of Hormuz. And I was like, that makes no sense at all. It'll be the very first thing they do.
Of course,
And when
they
they
said it.
just exactly just they gave inclinations of it, Trump panicked back then. Remember, he's putting out drill baby drill and on
Yeah,
his
yeah.
truth post, all the rest. He confesses a lot these days on his truth post. You know what he's being panicked by, what it scares him by his over the top machismo reaction, like his unconditional surrender demand. That's because Iran is in no interest to negotiate at this point.
Oh, yeah,
They
yeah.
wanted to establish their deterrence. And then they're like people were shocked that Russia was helping Iran. Like,
Oh, I know,
well,
I
what?
know.
You think we can wage a 4-year proxy war against Russia and they're not going to pay? Well, one, it's in their interest to not have Iran destabilized because it's a lot closer to their border than it is to ours.
Oh, yeah.
But independent of that, of course they were going to do that anyway. I mean, what turnabout's fair play. The My
Absolutely.
concern is, maybe China. Like if I'm China, wouldn't I be tempted to test out some of those weapons to see if they work?
They
Because now
are.
it's Iran that's using them, whether it's
Yeah, they
anti-ship
are.
weapons, with our perceived unsinkable carriers thing. I mean, what happens when there's a real? They've been able to suppress the press coverage of the planes going down, the Reapers going down. They pretend it's friendly fire from Kuwait. Apparently, somehow they took out a Reaper plus 3 F-15s. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe.
All at once.
Yeah,
One, I
all at
couldn't
once.
believe it. I mean, never mind friend or foe identifiers on their transponders. This is a flight of three F-15s. This is just one here, one there. It's a flight of three F-15s that take all of them out.
Yeah,
Either
it's
the
a
U.S.
coincidence it's by the
military
border.
and Kuwait are just absolutely fucked up and have no control over what's going on. I think you're better off saying it was S-300s because the alternative is much, much
Right.
worse.
Remember, they're obsessed with bragging about, oh, we went to Venezuela and those Russian air defenses didn't work and all that jazz. They worked when you sent 91 drones to try to murder Putin. So but they don't cover that part.
I
The
spoke
it,
with Larry Johnson, and he's a friend of mine, and we did an interview on that point, and he said, one of his colleagues that he keeps in touch with in the CIA was the guy, no names mentioned anywhere, was the guy that hired the Venezuelan or bribed the Venezuelan general, who's no longer in Venezuela, to switch off the systems, because that's the only way you bring in the for the sound focused sound weapons. They need a large power source. They need um, God, I'm tired. My mind's not working. The big helicopters. Why can I not remember the name?
well, which
Uh,
they flew in really low, which
yeah,
told you
I
they
know. I've
knew.
flown on those helicopters. They're huge. They're loud as hell, and they're slow. I mean, realistically speaking, you'd have to be blind to miss one of them. The only way Chinook. There we go. Good Lord. Uh, the only way you could miss those, not hit those Chinooks, is because you're not firing on them,
Right.
and that's it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what, and nobody saw any firing of it.
Well,
So
one of them got
pretend,
hit. Somebody actually fired
oh,
an
somebody
assault
fired
rifle.
like a
It turned
solo.
around and it left.
Yep.
Apparently, it was an assault rifle. They fired at it. It turned
Yeah.
around, left. It got damaged, but the other one was there. And they do this. Those sound weapons aren't new. In
Right.
fact, there's a law case in New York you probably know about that people are suing the police department because they popped their eardrums. They've got permanent damage from it.
Yep. Well, and then the other problem is Trump's pretending we have endless weapons for forever war when everybody in the world knows we're about to run out. The next
Uh-huh.
week we're about to run out.
Yeah.
Of certain key anti-defense weapons. I mean, the Tomahawks. I think we've quit firing.
Oh
The
yeah.
We're not going in with direct strikes now because the air is so clear. We're going in because it's our only option.
Well,
And
it's glide bombs that they're dropping. It's JDAMs. And
right.
and the sound of it coming in is a JDAM. I mean, I've watched some of these videos, and you can hear them coming in. It's JDAMs.
Mm,
The B-52s are not going over Iran. They can do it
right.
as a standoff. And they go, man, the S-400s haven't been found. They're waiting. The
Right.
Russian pilots, and nobody's going to say that. It's not the official line. But I
Right.
guarantee you it's Russian pilots in those MiG-29s just waiting for a B-52 to show up for payback for Ukraine for the last 4 years because you
Right.
cannot train a pilot up in 4 or 5 months.
No, no. That's why there has to be some Chinese people on the ground in terms of the radars and other
Right.
aspects, and there has to be Russian folks on the ground.
And the
And it's
Chinese
easy for both of them to
radars,
come in. They can just come in through those big border, Pakistan,
oh yeah,
Afghanistan, Turkmenistan. Real easy for
Caspian
them to get
Sea.
access.
Oh, the Russian
Whereas,
Astrakhan area is very busy right now on the Caspian.
and where are U.S. troops are going to come in? It's like, okay, if
Azerbaijan
Azerbaijan does. Yeah, I mean
drive.
that's the problem. I mean it's a long. I mean you got Azerbaijan who knows if they go in, Russia's going to come in and take them out. Just
Oh, they're
you know,
done.
and
They are.
hey, you can use the Maduro precedent now. You can just go
Yeah,
in and
yeah.
arrest the president, take him back to Moscow, and call it a law enforcement operation.
Well, look, you want to talk about a one-trick pony. All of Azerbaijan's real economy is based off of oil. The oil is offshore to the north of Baku. So Baku's on a peninsula. I used to be there a lot of times because I had people working there for me. South side of the peninsula is Baku. Have a little hill down the middle of the peninsula. North side is where all the offices, Halliburton, Schlumberger, everybody else, BP, and you see all the platforms. They're just offshore. During the Tsarist Russian area, they were literally offshore, like 100 meters offshore. But now they've moved further offshore. But you can see them all from the coast, right? Just looking at them, you can see all of them up there. And there's one oil pipeline going right along the Iranian border. I mean, you want to destroy your economy instantly. There you go. Go to war with Iran.
So that's why I don't see them doing it. The Kurds have multiple Kurdish. I know there's a range of Kurdish groups. I'm sure there's some Kurdish groups you can bribe and pay off, but whether they're willing to do a suicide mission, they might just take the money and just stay home. I mean, a bunch of the Iraqi Kurdish groups said we have no interest in this. What
Oh,
the Iranian Kurdish groups have never had a big problem with the
yeah.
Iranian government. It's not like the Syrian and Iraqi Kurdish groups. It's
Oh,
one
they
of the
did.
big
They did.
misreadings.
They did have a problem with the Iraqi government. It was called the Shah, who
Yeah, yeah,
massacred
yeah,
them.
yes, correct, correct. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So this Iranian government, they have not had major conflicts with and so I don't see. It looks like the Kurds have already said no, and you kind of know that by Trump saying, "Well, I don't need them anyway," and he did that routine today. And it's like, well, where are we going to go in? Because what I had heard was we were going to cede special forces amongst a group. By the way, that's part of why they released ISIS prisoners from
Oh
Syria.
yeah.
They're
Yeah.
hoping ISIS. Can you imagine? We're gonna have like Kurds, MEK, some Sunni Muslims from the northeast. We hope from Iran, and ISIS mixed in with U.S. special forces. I mean,
Why
doesn't
not?
this scream trouble?
What amazes me is, okay, so they want to bring in Syrian Kurds, the ones that the U.S. just backstabbed and allowed El Jalani, the head chopper, who killed Americans too, by the way, to murder off.
Yeah,
And they're going to fight for you. Why?
exactly. That made no sense at all. Probably should have thought that before they did it. But obviously not. I mean, and after being betrayed before with the Iraqi Kurds, being betrayed repeatedly by the U.S., is Erdogan going to really let the Kurds develop a little mini Kurdistan right
Yeah,
on his
right.
Turkish? Exactly. That whole plan, when I heard it, I was like, nobody has thought this through at all. This is childish. This is like the worst of the Bush administration combined with the worst of the Biden administration, but on steroids. It is mind-boggling to witness.
You know the story about the scorpion and the frog?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Why did you sting me? Now we're gonna sink both. I'm a scorpion. This is the same thing with the Kurds and everything else. I mean, just I don't know what is it with the elites in the U.S. I mean, I know they're related to the elites in Britain, and backstabbing is just like a second nature to them. I mean, but you backstab everybody, and eventually nobody likes you. I don't know. You kill people while you're negotiating with them, and you go, "Hey, let's negotiate." They don't want to
It, it,
negotiate.
it's
Go
insanity. I
figure.
mean, Witkoff completely torched whatever was left of his credibility.
Oh,
The going out and lying, and then I guess he didn't think the Oman folks would come out and leak that was totally a lie. The media, when the U.S. media is saying it's a lie, that's not an Iranian source. That's the Oman is the source, and it was an obvious lie, and it was a ridiculous lie. And I get it. I mean, but like take Witkoff, he's doing a whole bunch of deals with the royals on the side. Same with Kushner. I
oh
mean, and
yeah.
now they just sabotage him and think there'll be no consequences.
Oh, of
The
course.
thing that all these guys have in common, Kushner thinks he's been tutored by Kissinger, and so he thinks he knows stuff. He's in way over his head. doesn't understand it. Trump only trusted them to do it, in part because he has legitimate concerns with the State Department, but also illegitimate reasons that they would protect the Trump family and their allies'
Yep.
wealth and side deals. Whether it's
Yep.
going into Venezuela, so Paul Singer gets a huge payback on his buying up of Venezuelan debt for dimes on the dollar, whether it's side deals for this. I mean, Indonesia, the main country that was in the Board of Peace, is already out. The How much longer do these other countries stay in? Or are all going to be second tier countries that are there?
Well, there was a Qatari businessman, billionaire, that's already asking, "Where's our money? What did you do
Yes.
with our 1 billion up on? There's like 30 billion bucks there. Maybe it's in the same offshore account somewhere in the Persian Gulf that the Venezuelan money went to."
Yeah. And where's Dubai going to be? Who's going to go to Dubai now that they recognize it's not some safety haven? I mean, Dubai could disappear overnight as a. I mean, the
Yeah.
people were paying 300 grand a pop just to fly out of there with whatever flights they could get. I know people that are still stranded there. I long said I didn't see Dubai as a. I had dealt with clients over the years that I had an opportunity in Dubai, and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't trust the stability of that region. Singapore I could get, Dubai I do not. The So I mean, it's
You're
a shit
right.
show on steroids.
Listen, one of my friends, Pate Abaladze, well, he got pushed down for being too pro-Russian in the Georgian government uh, from the Georgian Dream Party. His two sons, by his first marriage, are both officers in the Black Sea Fleet. His youngest son is a captain in the Marines, fighting the Nazi holes. Um, but his brother-in-law is Kabaladze, who's the mayor of Tbilisi, who's now stuck in Abu Dhabi with his family because they went there to celebrate his birthday. Whoops. And okay, fine, it's Georgia, and maybe Russia can get him out, maybe not. But the State Department's not doing anything to get American workers out. I mean, how many engineers are down there, technicians? They're not doing it. They could have made convoys by now to go across the desert, for God's sakes. Put up some
Yes.
some refilling points across the desert, get them out from Riyadh to Riyadh, then get them out. I mean, they could have done something,
Yeah.
and
Oh, I
nothing.
mean, Trump. I mean, this was like apparently we were using the same insider that Israel used to take out the Hezbollah leader in Iran that helped with the strikes in the summer. Of course, he apparently has now been executed because they figured out, okay, three times not a charm, that he
Yeah,
magically
yeah.
survived an
Pushing
attack
your
of a
luck there,
medium.
buddy.
Exactly. And that's what Trump means when he's like, oh, the person we thought, they're dead.
Yeah.
So it appears like we're actually using AI apparently to map out locations to hit. That's why we keep hitting hospitals, elementary schools, little girl schools. We apparently had an old map from the 2000 and or early 2000s that when that was a IRGC whole campus, and then now only a small part of it was, and the rest been turned into a girls' school. We apparently didn't know that. I mean, this is a level of ineptitude in comp beyond the policy uh, recklessness of pursuit of this. The extraordinary thing about this, to me, is the utter ineptitude it exposes, not only of Trump, but of key people in the Pentagon, the intelligence apparatus, and the State Department, where it's the sign of a true decaying empire. Now, what does Russia do? I mean, Israel specifically asked Russia to cut a deal. Hey, please have Iran not attack us, and we promise not to attack them. And then they break it right as soon as they can. It was clearly just a time delay
Oh
tactic.
yeah, yeah.
At what point, I get there's 2 million former Russians in Israel. At what point does Russia reevaluate its relationship with Israel over all this?
When Putin said that, the pushback was, first of all, just because they're Russian speakers doesn't mean they're Russians, because they're from
Right.
whatever, the Soviet Union. And two, they're not our citizen. I mean, they may have a dual passport, but they don't live here. And Israel's been, how many Mossad agents and how many Israeli mercs with their rifles. So that's not as if the government doesn't know they're leaving. You can't exactly fly out with an assault rifle, even if from Israel, are operating or have been killed operating in Ukraine. I think all of that is just like, yeah, whatever. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, bugger off. You're not going to get any sympathy. As a friend of mine in college used to put it, or at university, anyways. If you want sympathy, look it up between shit and syphilis in the dictionary. You know? Sympathy for Israel with most countries is done. It's just there is no border they haven't crossed. When they're screaming war crimes from the Iranians, the people they just massacred 400,000 people in Gaza, the people that are destroying whole neighborhoods and massacring people in Lebanon. By the way, they're not shooting in the Christian sections of Lebanon, murdering Christians.
Right.
They were doing that to the 10% Palestinians that are Christian too, but
Yeah.
I
I
guess
mean, it's
evangelicals don't give a damn. They're Christians being murdered.
well, it depends. I mean, the only people left that support BB's government are church-going evangelicals over the age of 60.
Over the age of
Young
60.
evangelicals are say they side more with Palestine, which I mean,
Ooh, that's
Palestine. Give you an idea.
bad
First time,
for
uh,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, Americans net first time ever sympathize more with Palestinians, and this is just 3 years removed from October 7th than Israelis. I mean that shows you. I mean, it's never happened in the history of the United States that gap has turned that way. But it's big amongst young evangelicals, Gen Xers, as well as millennials and Zoomers. So young evangelicals have no appetite for this. What you have is a corrupt, sort of parasitic elite class of religious leaders that came up during televangelist movement in the
Hmm.
1970s, and when the religious right formed a coalition of political convenience with the APAC crowd in the late 70s, early 80s to gain cultural power. But that is entirely faded. Plus, Israel got a lot of boost by being the pro-American side in the Cold War.
Hmm.
That's all gone, and the antipathy towards Israel on the right now within the Republican Party, there's more people that are anti-Israel than pro-Israel. The Democratic Party, it's 95 to
Wow.
5. Independents, it's 80 to 20. So Israel's
Wow.
becoming a political pariah of extraordinary degrees because there was always rumors and ruminations in the past, but the combination of the Epstein files and the all dragging us into this war after war combined between Gaza and Iran is awakened a ton of people who did not recognize just how nuts the BB Greater Israel Project is. And then you look at the other people they've put in as these apocalyptic dispensationalists. They are a tiny
Or
percentage.
heretics. They're a heretic.
Oh, they're
It's
absolute
Christian
heretics.
heresy, absolute Christian heresy.
I still don't understand how, like the Third Temple sects within Judaism, do they understand that the reason why Pete Hegseth supports it and the reason why Mike Huckabee supports it is because they're all going to die in the
Oh, no, 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 no,
apocalypse?
no. Listen, I've got some relatives in Israel from my father's side. I don't talk to them because ethnically, my mother's side and all, I'm Russian, and you know how that gets figured. And I'm Orthodox Christian, and that just doesn't. And honestly, calling them, I don't talk to them very often, anyways. But calling them has just gotten a pain in the ass because it's all. Why are we not being portrayed as good guys in the Russian media? We're always being portrayed badly. But you're murdering freaking women and children. Oh, you
Yeah,
don't realize that? Oh, okay. Well,
it's
it's but when I was talking to him, I'm like, I mean, years back, and I said, you know why the Zionists, the Christian Zionists, support you? It's like, of course we do, but we get money from them and guns, and they shoot people for us. Yeah, so yeah, it's like
yeah,
two
it's
parasites living off of each other.
and what's amazing is that the first sign of this reason why Tucker got so aggressive was early in the administration. The Israeli lobby started purging people within the administration that
Right.
had realist perspectives. The only people they weren't able to get out were Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Kent, Elbridge Colby, and J.D. Vance. That's it on the national security side. Everybody else they purged.
Yep.
And you have these commanders running around like you have your ordinary soldiers. Can you imagine sitting there? Your commander comes in and says, Stanislav, here comes the apocalypse. Let's bring it about. We're going to go bring it about. God wants us to bring it. I mean, whoa, it's so shocking. That's why it leaked out so
Oh
fast
yeah.
because these soldiers were like, what the hell?
You know, I'll tell you this. I was a captain promotable. I turned down the major's rank. I had soldiers that were like that. And it would start preaching, see, there's a war, it's the end. It's like, just stop.
Yeah.
You want to believe that? Believe that. I mean, I'm an Orthodox Christian. I've got my own views on it. And I remember what Jesus said, do not try to predict the end of the world. Only the Father knows the hour and the time, and
It's
he will
the
come upon you like a thief in the night. I quite remember what the Bible says, so don't just leave it alone. But if you want to think it, whatever, and your own free time. This is work. This is
Right.
service. That was
Well,
my attitude toward it.
it's
But to
amazing
have a
they've
commander,
elevated. Yeah, I didn't realize they'd elevated these guys into commander roles. I didn't realize Hegsmith, who promised he was off the neocon wagon, but he fell off that as
yeah,
fast
right.
as anybody. But I didn't realize he had these beliefs that he went to Jerusalem or Israel and basically did back in 2018. Apparently, the Tucker got and he's sitting there talking about the third temple, and I was like, what? What? We're
I
in the
saw
third
that video. That
restoration.
was in Jerusalem. That he did
In
that
Israel,
speech?
he did that. It was either in Jerusalem or somewhere else
Holy
in Israel. He made
crap!
in
Seriously.
2017.
Well, I saw
Yes,
the
and
video, but I didn't know where it was. He was making a
yeah, it was
speech
in
at.
Israel he was doing that. I mean, and I was like, oh, and now it's leaking out that he's the most gung ho for the war, that he's the one
Boots
pitching
on the
Trump all the
ground.
nonsense.
Yeah, boots on the ground. From where?
Yeah,
No, no, what gets me is those commanders, from what the people are saying, were also saying that Trump is the anointed by the Messiah. Like,
yeah.
oh, baby.
So somehow they
Wait,
seeded the. I mean, there were glimpses of this. I know Kevin Phillips wrote about it after the second Iraq War. I think he called it theocracy and some other things, but there were
yes.
elements of this, but not at this level of influence. That's what I didn't even
Jeez.
know. Like the religious leaders Trump has chosen to surround himself are these kind of people. They are not representative of the broader evangelical community. I grew up in that community. To give you an idea, I had never heard the word Zionist until I was in debate at Yale. I had never heard it the whole time I was growing up in the
Really?
evangelical community. So there was sympathy with Israel because they allowed access for Christians to come for pilgrimages. That was it. The other sentiment, to be honest with you, was, let's just say not sympathetic to the Jewish tradition. So, I mean, people can listen to Billy Graham talk to Richard Nixon when he
Yeah,
thought he
yeah.
was off the record,
I've
and
actually
you'll get
heard
a
some of
sense of
that.
that's more of the evangelical sentiment through much of the history, good, bad, or otherwise. The Zionism was a political convenience. I mean, it existed since the late 1700s in some Christian form, but it didn't take off until the 70s because of massive. They were able to use televangelists, especially the ones that they kept getting caught giving their secretaries the missionary position, and so
Not
they had to
only.
so they had to find a new church, new money, new source of support. And this was when television was coming on, and it was big in the 70s, 80s. It's been fading ever since. Like evangelicals in my generation get outraged when they hear a Huckabee or somebody else say that God requires me to support some politician. And you're supposed to have the hubris to think you can dictate to God what is going to happen. That is as heretical as it gets.
That's what kills me. And it's, I mean, I'm not quite sure how prevalent. I mean, there's 80 million evangelicals in the U.S. I'm
Yep.
not quite, and I grew up among a lot of, I mean, I grew up in the South. So there's a lot of these guys. I mean, I was baptized Lutheran, and then the Holy Spirit called me to the Orthodox Church when I was in my about 20. Um, and the Lutheran Church, I mean, go down how friggin' off they went off wow. Okay. That's a function. I guess it recognizes the hand going up. Stop
Oh,
that.
that's funny.
Yeah, that's new. Um,
Well, yeah,
so
I mean,
I got to be careful.
with
But the Lutheran Church went off the deep end into woke insanity.
yeah, well, it
Anything,
depends on which.
anything.
You had the mainstream, and then you had the evangelical Lutheran Church is actually the woke one, and then you have the Missouri Synod, which is still more evangelical. And it's split, but the other split that happened with the evangelical community, this is why people couldn't get right Trump in 2016 in the
Mhm.
primaries. There's the churched and the unchurched. About half of evangelicals now don't go to church. That they have doubts about the church. They'll say, "Hey, I'm a born again Christian. I believe in it," but it's more cultural than it is institutional. That group has never been on the Zionist train. And then even within the evangelical tradition, you've had a split by generation. Unless you grew up with the televangelist in the 70s and 80s, like a Mike Huckabee or other people, for the most part, you're not a Zionist. That you like when I talk to any young evangelical that I know, they get mad when that phrase is brought up. They see it as blasphemous. They see it as
Oh, yeah,
heretical.
it is
They see it as an
blasphemous.
insult to their religion. It's this old vestigial group that somehow the Israeli lobby managed to put in positions of power with senators, congressmen, generals, commanders, State Department, crazies, etc.
Yeah, I'm shocked how many colonels, because I mean, he's a brigade commander as a colonel. That
Yeah.
that you know, uh, I mean, I'm just shocked when you hear this because I mean, I served 11 years in there. You don't allow things like that. If you want to have church service after last formation, go ahead. You want to do that. But the commander was, in some commanders even led church service, but you don't bring that into directly like that because, you know, you don't force your faith down your soldiers because by the way, it's a great way to kill morale. Unless everybody is evangelical like you are in that case, or Catholic like you are, whatever you are, if not everybody else like that, that doesn't that rubs people the wrong way a lot. So it's just shocking when I start reading it and watching the videos. Like, holy crap, this is how far it's gone.
Yeah, and it's just this sort of small group that doesn't have political power amongst the masses, but does in the as they've managed to truly the Israeli lobby figured out a way to truly infiltrate all of
Oh
our
yeah.
major institutions,
Oh,
using
absolutely.
Christian Zionism as its stalking horse. But politically, and I think another reason why they went in, they realized in 5 years Israel's going to be such a political pariah. They're dead around the world,
Oh yeah.
so
Yeah.
they figured now was their one window to create the Greater Israel Project.
There's two things I want to say to that. First of all, a lot of those former evangelicals are going over to the Orthodoxy, the Ortho
Yeah.
Bros. And interesting enough, it's the men. It's not the women. The women are going off the deep end into woke, liberal psychopathy. The men are going conservative Christian or Orthodoxy because the Orthodox Church is very conservative. I mean, really very conservative. We don't believe in change. Why change when we, change isn't the vocabulary. The other thing is, and I've got a video I'm going to post as part of my the videos I do every day as updates to what's going on in Iran, and it's a mini documentary. I mean, like 5 minutes on Netanyahu and his mentor, who was an extreme right rabbi that said that Netanyahu, well, this is young Netanyahu, that he anointed Netanyahu, that Netanyahu was going to go to the Knesset, Netanyahu was going to become prime minister, and Netanyahu was going to hand the flag of Israel to God when well, for them it's the first coming is going to happen. So he's the anointed. To God or to the Antichrist? I don't know. Oh, we'll
Yeah.
live and see. But this murderous bastard, is the anointed, and he believes it himself.
Oh, speaking of which, I mean, I was trying to explain to people in the States that apparently didn't think there was any war crime in what we did to that Iranian frigate. To me, that absolutely is a violation of various laws and treaties and conventions that, I mean,
Oh
not
yeah.
only attacking an unarmed vessel in international waters that was not attacking or participating in the conflict that was there under false pretenses, but letting all the sailors drown. That's not that doesn't conform to. I mean, that strikes me as a classic war crime.
Right. No, look, you can the shooting the torpedoing of the frigate, because it is a frigate, it is part of the armed services of a country that America apparently, by the way, isn't at war with, even though it's at war with. Um, we're bombing and killing 1,000 civilians just yesterday, but we're not really at war with them. Okay. Then it's a terrorist action, because if you're either at war
Right.
with them or a terrorist action, bombing and killing civilians. So which one is it? Okay, so it's a gray area to say whether or not they had, but the fact, and the humane thing would have been giving them a chance to surrender, and then towing
Right.
them off to some neutral port and imprisoning them. I think they would have more likely had that happen in World War II. World War One absolutely would have happened that way. But you're right, letting them sink and drown and be eaten by sharks in those shark-infested waters. Now, having said
I mean,
that, but
even
Pete
the Nazis
Hegseth
didn't do
said,
that, did they?
no, well, to the Soviets did, and we did it to them because there was like no bar. At that point, it
Oh
was
yeah.
just, yeah. It was a pretty nasty battle after that. But no, with the Westerns, they didn't. But even when the Bismarck was sunk, there was a lot of guys that were pulled out of the water. Most of them froze to death because it was the North Atlantic and bad weather, cold. But
Right.
but the point is though, the this is the same Pete Hegseth that said, double tap the survivors on the fishing boat or speedboat, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He's the one that gave the orders for that.
He's become insane. I talked
Well,
to him years ago when he was very anti-war, and he was like, "I learned my lesson, and I don't
he
want
was
any part of."
anti-war.
Oh, by between 2019 and 2024, He had, I mean, you in fact find an interview with him on Sean Ryan right after the election, where he's like, "I'm a recovering neocon. I realize all these wars are a disaster. The regime change is a disaster. Mideast war is a disaster. Realize what a, I mean, he condemns everything he's now doing. I mean, it's like not only did he fall
Man,
off
did he
the,
get fall off the wagon?
he not only fell off the wagon, he fell. It's like he binged. It's like he's binging, nonstop. I mean, like a drug addict that just can't get enough because he's playing into Team
Oh yeah.
America World Police.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
I
it's like,
remember that movie.
yeah, I know it's and he's in the language. I mean, especially like even other people that work at the Pentagon work for him were shocked at his reaction to the American casualties. He's like, like a lot of people are shocked at Trump's reaction. Oh, we might have terrorism in the U.S. It's war. People die. It's like, I mean, to Trump's credit, his first term, he seemed to really hate U.S. casualties.
Oh
He hate
yeah.
like when he did something, it would be like Syria. We're going to bomb an empty airport. Tell him in advance. Stuff like that. Not now. This is a radical
Oh yeah.
transition of both. For Hegseth, it's going back to who he used to be, but for Trump, it's becoming something he never was and always ran against.
Maybe all his party drugs from the '90s are catching up. Listen,
Yeah, well,
I've got a
he keeps
buddy.
taking the booster.
Does he?
Yeah, he's taking booster
Seriously,
number 6 just a couple of months ago.
he's taking that poison RMNA crap.
Yep.
Seriously,
Yes.
really. I mean, really
He's
taking the
taking
booster,
every single one for
not
every
faking
single
it. You
year.
know, with the syringe, the collapsed syringes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh,
I
that's
went, I don't know if you
insane.
saw the rashes that he
Yeah,
keeps
of
having.
course.
Now, that's probably, as Alexander McCourse pointed out, a sign of deep, deep stress. I think, with him and Macron, confession through projection is a great filter.
Oh
So
yeah.
take whatever they say and assume they're talking about themselves. When they're talking about Iran or talking about Russia, Macron really is guilty of this. You want to know exactly what Europe's up to. He'll tell you. He'll accuse Russia of doing it. It's what they're like, hey, we're going to start using dirty bombs to attack civilians, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
The you said like he
My
said
husband beats me all the time. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah,
That
yeah,
Macron.
exactly. Yeah. So you get the like he was talking about. Well, you can't. These are untrustworthy negotiators who are lunatics motivated by religious idolatry. And I was like, you just described what Pete Hegseth is. You
Yep.
just described our just Now, I assume Russia has its own motivations for the playing. But do you think they continue to play out the card of we're going to pretend to be in negotiations with the U.S.? Given that Witkoff is now the most incredulous figure in that capacity around the world, and we have no credibility left.
Yeah, they were hoping with Woodcock that at least they'd get him as a bag man. Let's get the investments that'll calm them down because now there's big money involved. He's been a failure even in that.
Yeah.
But
Oh, completely.
Woodcock understands cutthroat mafia style real estate in New York. He doesn't understand big oil or big industry that takes
No.
years to set up. That takes long term investments. He flips apartments for God's sakes.
Yes.
Okay, maybe buildings full of apartments, but he's still flipping apartments, just in large quantities of them at a time. You know, it's a whole different mentality. It's an
Right.
absolutely different mentality. But yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe it is the boosters. Yeah, I didn't know he was actually really taking
Oh,
those
yes.
shots.
And he's now 80. We really should think about a mandatory retirement age. We have a minimum qualification age for every constitutional office. Maybe it's time we have a maximum age.
Well, I
Uh,
wouldn't say maximum age, but I would say at least yearly real checkups with
Yeah,
like
so some measurement, some metric, so
right.
that we don't keep having these. I mean, because it happened with Woodrow Wilson. I mean, where his wife was really running the White House for the last 6 months of his administration.
Yeah.
It happened with Ronald Reagan, where the last 2 years Nancy Reagan was mostly running the show. It happened with Joe Biden, and now it
Like that was with
appears to
Joe
be
Biden from
happening.
day one.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
That they
come on.
yeah, and now with Trump, there's clearly signs of it. I mean, you see him fall asleep in ways he never did before,
Oh
like
yeah,
right
yeah.
during a meeting, boom, and starting to knock it off. The whole announcement of the Iranian attack looked weird. I mean,
Yeah.
with the hat, because he's probably didn't like his hair messed up, but that would suggest he didn't know it was coming. I mean, it's like, well, how did you not know this was coming? You're the president. Maybe Israel jumped the gun again. That's always possible. That was the internal story after the first time, but all of it just seems it's a degree for all the heel turns that American politicians have engaged in for the better part definitely since the end of the Cold War. Every single one has run against war. Every single one has then got us into some war somewhere. The This is the biggest heel turn ever,
Oh yeah.
in my view, in American politics.
You know, right off the bat, because I was on different Russian television, and they really don't want you to talk bad about Trump because that's off limits. We're still trying to negotiate with him. Don't talk bad about him. I was like, listen, do you think he's your friend? I mean, seriously, you think he's your friend? He's worse than Biden because Biden was at least silent and evil toward Russia. So you have an enemy you can't talk to. This guy just strings you along. I mean, time to wake up. It's not going to be a deal. Okay, but all that aside, but I was pointing out, look how he's talking. Compare his first term when he's talking in full adult sentences, and he's talking, like my son, my little boy, he's talking like that. He's in
Right.
chunks, and they're not adult, thought through sentences.
Yep.
And the
Uh,
wording that I mean, the vocabulary he's using, it's just like it's like a 9 or 10 or 11-year old, maybe an 8-year old talking.
he's
That's what you're hearing.
clearly mentally receding
Oh
and
yeah.
clearly under massive stress, and then behaving in a way that's counter his character over much of his life in many respects. And he's destroying. I mean, the 2024 coalition is going to be dead for probably at least two cycles. And the only way it comes back is that Democrats are such a disaster that
Themselves,
may
yeah.
come back. And then the other way it may come back in a different form. The UK, all the big parties are going to be gone in a couple of years.
Yeah,
They've been
yeah.
there for a century. You may see the same thing in the US. Libertarians on the right, Greens on the left emerge to replace the existing,
Bring
because I don't
back the
know how
Whigs.
long.
Bring back the Whigs and the Anti-Federalists.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The old school days. I mean, almost, and that's when a system so atrophies in the U.S. That's when third parties have emerged, or in other countries, and you've seen parts of that in Germany and France and other places as well. That the Western elites have so destroyed democratic institutions and the public's ability to restrain, restrict, or direct their activities against their own interests for this globalist elite oligarchic class, which I think is brilliantly called the Epstein class
Oh
now.
yeah.
I mean, I even see the Iranian propagandists and advocates saying this is Iran versus the Epstein class. Man, I mean, imagine that. They're going to rally much. I even had somebody. I mean, to give you an idea where some people are so delusional. Somebody was telling me that, oh no, you don't understand, Barnes. Shia Islam is going to be gone within a year because of this conflict. And it's like, what? You had an evangelical guy that was on Turning Point telling them that Iranians are secretly Christian. I mean, this is the level of insanity being
There
broached
are a
in.
lot of Christians in Iran, and they're allowed, and they can practice
Yeah,
Orthodox Christianity, Catholicism. There's Armenian. There's even evangelicals, and they're allowed to practice. And they have, in fact, they by the constitution of the Iranian Republic, because it's a republic, all minorities, both ethnic and religious, have to have representation in parliament.
yep.
Yeah. How many minorities? How many churches are in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
baby.
exactly.
Keep counting them
Well,
up.
that's one of the
One. Nope, nope, nope. Still can't find that one.
Well, it's one of the myths that we built, and that Trump somehow convinced. Like, for example, the CIA, NED, and USAID use a cutouts in the Netherlands and in Canada to do fake polls of the Iranian public. But if people want to go and look up, there's a Sadat professor at the University of Maryland who actually does really good, honest polling data. And what he showed was there is no huge appetite in Iran to overthrow their government. There's no desire to look like Libya, Syria, or Iraq. This is the Persian culture that goes back many, 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 many centuries. One of the most ancient, continuous civilizations in the world. That at various times found ways to push back against the Mongols. I remember I put out a challenge like two places. I was like, the European Western hubris is going to meet its nemesis, old Greek style, in two places, in the Russian bear in Ukraine and the Persian tiger in Iran. And I was like, my own advice is don't take on civilizations that ever had any degree of success against the Mongols. And then somebody responded, but the Kievan Rus were crushed by. I was like, do you not know the Kievan Rus is the Ukrainian prodigy, the Muscovite Rus is the Russian prodigy.
Well, no,
The
no, no,
like,
no, no. Even the Kievan Rus is no Ukrainian pride. There was, first of all, just on that, Ukraine literally translates Kraina is hinter. It's a hinterland. It,
hmm,
it never existed. There was never a Ukrainian
no.
nationality. There
It
was,
used to be called Ruthenian. Like when they first came to the Canada and the
well,
United States, they called
even
themselves the
that's
Ruthenian Nationalist Association that only changed after World War One.
Ruthenian is Russian. And by the way,
Of course it
we
is.
had four families in my church. It was a Greek church in Raleigh. We had four families of Ruthenians. Ruthenians are Carpato Rus,
Mm.
who, by the way, you tell them they're not Russians, they will split your nose open. And then they were, I knew the guys. They were walking pissed off. We were having a festival, Orthodox festival, and they're pissed off. I'm like, what happened? They're like, oh, I'm not gonna curse. Well, I try not to curse, especially, and it's the Great Lent right now. But like, "Ah, bloody Moscow, some guy from Moscow came in there who was a new immigrant. And he told them they weren't Russians. Man, that was just, and they were ready to just beat the crap out of him for that. Those people they speak a very old dialect of Russian, and they've been living
Yep.
up in those Carpathian Mountains, and they got separated because of the
Yep.
Mongol invasions and the Poles and Hungarians coming in, but they're Russians. You Kiev. Okay, first capital was Old Ladoga. Then Rurik built. Rurik was invited in because there's all these city states were fighting each other. They didn't trust each other. They needed a neutral party. They brought Rurik in. His wife was already a Sorb, a Slavic, Western Slav Sorb. He builds Novgorod when he figures out nobody's going to run him out. He dies. His sword brother, or maybe it was his real brother, nobody knows, adopts becomes a foster father to his son Igor. Oleg comes down there, grabs Kiev because two of his men who were raiding Byzantine, they came back and they grabbed Kiev. Kiev was the westernmost vassal state of the Khazar Empire.
Mm.
He asked them to come out to negotiate, chops them down, and the negotiations. They're pagans. At the end of negotiations, and we're going to move the capital here because it's a better location. So you've got Novgorod taking care of the Hellenic League, and then Kiev was taking care of the trade down to Byzantine. That was the capital for about 200 years. Andrei Bogolyubsky, who was the prince of Suzdal, builds the city of Vladimir, conquers Kiev because they're always fighting with each other. There's four separate branches of Ruriks, and they were constantly fighting with each other. Who gets to sit in Kiev? He conquers Kiev, refuses to sit there. It's the old city. I've got a nice new city. Sends his younger brother, and the capital moves to Vladimir. And then the Mongols come in there, and the point is, it was a confederacy basically. And the Mongols took them all apart, each of those families apart. Um, and then everybody, it gets more, it's more complicated than that. I just don't want to do a whole lecture on that, and just trying to cramp the time.
But
But
yeah.
Kiev, after the Mongols, Kiev was a city. Well, it was a ruin of 300 families. That's all that was left, right?
Mm.
And the Orthodox metropolitan moved to Vladimir because that was the big city that was rebuilt. And then when Moscow became the capital of the Rus states, he moved to there and then became the patriarch. And then it just Moscow started reconquering and reunifying with all the other states and unified, like
Who
France and
was
every
it?
other country did.
Was it the guy they call Ivan the Terrible? Who was it that beat the Mongols that had
Ivan,
success against
first
them?
of all, it's Ivan Grozny is Ivan the Feared. British propaganda call
Ah,
him the
interesting.
Terrible. Yeah, the British. Here's an interesting little point. The British discovered us. We didn't know we were lost. Our neighbors knew we were there, but the British discovered us in the during the Queen Elizabeth's reign. Well, Ivan Grozny. It's not even Ivan. Ivan is the modern word. Iwan John. Iwan Vasilovich the Fourth. Grozny, the feared. So, and they discover us. You know where they discover us? Arkhangelsk, all the way up freaking north. The next question you got to ask: what the hell were the British doing up there? Well, the better question you got to ask: how much were the Sultans paying for blonde girls and boys?
Right.
The British were
People forget
raiding
how
up and
much that
down Norway and
Ottoman.
Iceland, stealing children and women to sell to the slave markets. They got to Murmansk, and what did they find? They didn't find nice little Norwegian peaceful village because the Vikings were no legend now. They were all peaceful farmers. No, they found a fortress with cannons. So they said, "Whoa, let's trade." These guys want to blow us out of the water. Let's trade. And they opened up a trade mission in Moscow. So yeah, so that's how. And you know what a trade mission is? It's a museum not far from the
Hmm.
Kremlin. It's the old Romanov estate house.
Oh, really?
that was then given Ion Grozny because his second wife was a Romanov. That's how the Romanovs got
Mm.
into the selection process. He moved them and gave their house over to the English as a trade house and an embassy. And
Hmm.
it's a museum. It's a pretty cool museum. You walk in, it's still set up as the old trade house. I
Wow.
mean, and it's a stone building. I mean, the blocks are like about, 2
Yeah.
feet thick walls. When you walk in there, and it's like that thing ain't going down. you know? But it's a
Wow.
pretty cool little museum that well, I went there. One of my kids went there with their school field trip, and I chaperoned. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. So yeah, a little history side. So no, Ukraine was never, and all those areas in Kiev got conquered by Lithuania, which became a Russian kingdom because 90% of people were Russians, and then they unified with Poland, and then Russia was reconquering all of its lands and took Kiev back. Actually, paid for it. So it was never this. The Soviets created Ukraine. The Soviets created Belarus because divide and conquer, or divide and rule.
Right.
They were making all these new little ethnic societies and creating new histories for them and all that. So, and then we
Hmm.
get to pay for it. So
Right.
I'm sorry. Sorry when
Yeah.
we went into this history lecture.
No, yeah, no problem.
So it's just I get sore with it. Like no. It for a while there were actually two capitals because Kiev was the capital for some of the southern Russian princes, and Vladimir was the capital for the northern Russian princes. But Kiev
Fascinating.
got Kiev got
Who was
massively
it that,
raped.
so was it, do I have right that it was even that it was so almost like John, the terrible that beat, who was it that beat the
The feared,
Mongols?
the feared.
It was the fear.
There were several people that beat the Mongols. So
Okay.
Dmitry Donskoy was the first one that beat them. Mamayev was his horde was destroyed. And by the way, there were Italian musketeers working for Mamayev as mercenaries. They had to get even into there.
Yeah.
He beat them the first time, but he didn't separate. He was still a vassal. But even vassals, they'd come in once every 5, 10 years for tax. And sometimes they took men for their wars, as you had to give them levies. But other than that, that was pretty much it.
Right.
There were some raids, but okay, so like the first time Kazakhs are mentioned in Russian history is like 1448 in Ryazan, which is east of Moscow, where 500 boyars, which are noblemen, and 500 Kazakhs destroyed a Mongol invasion. But it was some small princeling and his little band that were raiding. And they were allowed to kill those guys because they were not officially part of, they're on their own. So they're like basically Mongol bandits. So if you killed them off, the Khan said, yeah, whatever. Yeah, one less idiot to deal with for myself. So they were allowed to do things like that. So yeah, history is a little more touchy with that. But Ion Grozny, he not only did he crush, okay, by that point the Golden Horde split. They were just not knocking each other off left and right, and they wound up splitting into separate entities. So you had the Astrakhan Corps that Grozny conquered the horde that was sitting in Kazan and the Volga Bulgars that they had subjugated. Then he broke Astrakhan, which was a separate horde, and then his sometimes ally, the Crimean Khaganate. The Crimean Tartars aren't Tartars. There's no such thing as a Tartar. They're Mongols. They invaded along with the Turks, and they were going to chop up all of Russia. The Lithuanians just didn't show up in time, and he did crush the. I mean, they wiped them out. There was like an army of about 50, 60,000, and about 3,000 made it home.
Wow.
Yeah, they just in Maladai. That was a battle in this small town of Maladai, south of Moscow. Well, south of Moscow. But yeah, they just destroyed them. They used what's called Gulai Gorod, which is how the Indians, when the Indians attacked and the wagons would form a circle. Same concept, except on the other side of the wagon is a 4 foot wall of or 5 foot wall of boards with shooting positions, and it goes all the way down. So you just make a wall, and everybody's shooting out of that wall. So basically it's a fortress on wheels. So
Well,
Yeah,
the and that's what I got fact checked by Grok claiming that there had been no Russian success ever against the Mongols. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's historically inaccurate. And
yeah.
and they were limiting it to the Kievan Rus of a certain time frame was part of it.
Very short time frame. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and
The
has anyone ever actually truly conquered Russia?
No. The
Right.
Mongols were as close as it got. Now, the Poles were in Moscow twice, and they ate a good chunk of the population the second time. Oh, no, I'm serious when I say that,
Mhm.
because they were surrounded by siege. You see, Russia's National Day is November 4th, but on the old calendar, since it was the Orthodox Julian calendar, it's 2 weeks earlier.
Mm.
Two week difference. That was the day that the relief army was crushed by two people's armies, and the Great Smuda, or the Great Time of Troubles, ended, and because they lots of different czars, including the Poles, it was just a mess. 13 years of civil war and all that. Um, and then the Romanovs got in. That's how the Romanovs get. But Moscow was under siege, and the Poles were stuck inside Moscow. And they ran out of food, so they ate the horses, the rats, and then they started eating the locals. Literally. I mean, they were
Yeah.
committing mass cannibalism at that
Yeah.
point. And they were eventually allowed out of the city because it's just easier to let them out than try to storm the city. But that was
Right.
after the relief army got wiped out totally, right underneath their noses. So that's called Russia's National Day, but that's what it celebrates was the end of the Smuda because the Poles were finally kicked out and everything started, going back.
And my take is, I mean, the Persians, while they, Mongols at different times dominated, but ultimately they were able to
Yeah,
survive the
yeah.
Mongols. And it was like it was just like it was one of the I used to say it was like, but it's about the Vietnamese War. Vietnam beat the Mongols twice. I was like, my general
Three times,
is
I think.
don't
Three.
don't try to conquer somebody that has ever beat the Mongols. Just where are the lies? Just just good. The it's probably not going to work out. And I don't see the Persian culture collapsing. I don't see
No.
this government collapsing. I mean, I think some form of this government will continue to exist, or at a minimum, it will not. Trump's goal is a pro-American, pro-Israel, uh, a puppet regime. And I just
Yeah,
don't see
yeah,
that emerging in Iran. I don't see, especially now, they have 150 they got kids. They're getting martyred every day in
yeah.
schools. Their religious leader just got martyred. I see them as, especially within a religious cultural tradition that celebrates being persecuted, that celebrates suffering as signs of proof of your faith, whose founder and leader was mass murdered himself. I mean, that you base your entire religious beliefs substantially upon. I don't see
Um,
them going gently into that good night.
you just described orthodoxy, whose leader Christ was murdered himself.
Yeah,
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 that was the Judeo part of the Judeo-Christian. That was the
right,
Judeo
right.
party, killing Christ. If we're gonna go down that road, uh,
Yeah, I don't see them folding. Do you?
no, no. Just like the Orthodox would never fold.
Right.
As I was saying, you can take my icons out of my cold dead hands. You know.
Exactly.
So first you're gonna get the barrel of a gun. Uh, so yeah, no, no. I mean, it's a 3,000-year-old culture. You're right. It
Yeah,
survived the Mongols.
yeah.
Literally,
Ex-
it survived the Mongols.
I mean, that is still. I always tell
It
people
survived the
if
Arabs too.
if you're feeling bad about the world, just remember at least you're not living in a time where the Mongols knock on your door. So that there are a lot worse times in the past. Even if we're on the verge of tinkering with nuclear annihilation for the globe, the hopefully all that gets avoided. Now, what level do you think Russia? I mean, Russia's clearly helping out in
Right,
significant
right,
capacities,
right.
but they could provide like food supplies, all
They
kinds of
are. They
supplies.
are.
Okay.
Russia's providing grain. You know what Russia provides most food to Iran? Diesel. Iran
Mm,
has a lot of oil, and it's light oil, but they don't have the refinery capacity to feed their own economy. So they have to import, and Russia exports oil to Iran across the Caspian. Well, not oil, diesel, gasoline, all of that. So yeah, no, Russia's keeping that open.
right.
And because that $1 billion radar has been destroyed, um, the U.S. military can't coordinate with the Ukrainians to hit anything in the Caspian because they were seeing into southern Russia.
Ah, right.
So now they're blind. And here's the question: how is the U.S. going to replace all those missiles without rare earth magnets?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's another problem that they're all pretending is not going to blow up in our faces.
Yeah.
The and of course, as we've talked about previously, the U.S. military supply chain is not capable of quick, huge World War II style industrial
Oh
production. And Trump brought them all in and said, "Hey, just make this happen." And he's like,
yeah.
It was kind of like when the oil leaders came in Venezuela. That this is not a turnkey operation anymore. The Now, if he nationalized the military and the military industrial complex, okay, maybe you could start to. But the problem is you don't have the skill sets. You don't have so many things that you need to make that easy. And then, as you know, critical parts of the supply chain depend
Oh yeah.
on the voluntary support ongoing of China. Trump's supposed to go to China next month. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I
they're
heard
going
about that. What's he
to.
gonna
I
say to
wonder if
them?
they'll. If the war is ongoing. Will Xi keep that meeting or will he cancel that meeting?
Or will G be sitting in Taiwan?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, we've relocated the meeting. It'll be easier for you to fly there. It's closer.
Yeah, yeah,
It's in
yeah, exactly.
Taiwan now.
Well, since we're going to cannibalize all of the air defense systems for South Korea and Japan, so, man, you talk about a rough year for South Korea and Japan. They're
Ooh.
getting whacked the hardest on the oil and natural gas issues at the moment. They're getting, and now they're about to have all their defenses stripped from them. I mean,
Yeah,
there was
that's
no real. People think there was some super duper 4D chess behind the. There was no real planning on this.
it
The the,
wasn't even
the
2D checkers.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even at that level. And that's why Trump was like, I was shocked that they did this. I was shocked. I mean, things that everybody knew that was going to happen. Then came out and said the Gulf states are going to announce they're joining. They came out and said just the opposite. Then said Azerbaijan's going to join. They said just the opposite. Said the Kurds were going to join. They said just the opposite. I mean, it's just been one problem after it. And he seems to really think, I'll just tell Iran, if you rebel, I'll let all of you come back into to the U.S. Now, problem one, who trusts Trump on any promise at this point? That's problem one. He doesn't realize torching his credibility on all these
Oh yeah.
broken promises. No one's going to believe him. But two, that isn't what a bunch of Iranians are sitting around waiting for anyway. They're going to risk their lives and go against their religion and go against their nation to possibly maybe someday get some sort of reward in the U.S. That shows you the degree of disconnect world he's living in. It's pure delusion. It's like a mad King Lear.
Well, Raji, the wannabe king. Um, yeah, I love the part where he said, uh, and he's another one of those idiots that just puts everything out on X. I feel for the American soldiers that died. Okay, that's fine. Not a word about the Iranian little girls that died. The people you want to rule. I
That
mean
guy's
that he
such a
got
joke.
fried on that. But no, the best part was when he put out this because the Kurds may be rebelling. So I guess he's trying to get the right wing Iranians on his side. He's like, because like my father, when I come in, I'm just gonna give all the oil over to the foreigners, and then they're gonna give me a free hand, and I'm just gonna exterminate the Kurds. So the Kurds, they're not reading this. Oh yeah, wait a minute. We want to overthrow the Iranian government for what? So this guy could be in power? No.
It's a bad joke at so many levels. It's That's why the level of insanity. I mean, Brandon Weichert, who's a Trump aligned guy, Iranian skeptic, he's been out there saying this is a disaster left, and well, the degree to which people are propagandized. I mean, they don't realize that Israel has censored everything so
Oh
massively and
yeah.
so extensively that we only get glimpses of the damage that's being caused there.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, and the U.S. gets caught lying within 24 hours because of the satellite photos that China and other people are sharing. So they said they say, "Oh, that radar wasn't hit, that base wasn't hit, that never happened," and then there's the photo that doesn't exist anymore. They think they can get away with all this ridiculous nonsense, and it's like, okay, what happens when everybody realizes this isn't the case 6 weeks from now? If I don't know if I mean I don't think the Royals can necessarily survive 2 months. I don't know if Europe can survive 2 months. I don't know if South Korea and Japan can survive 2 months. And because we haven't, like people were talking about water being a big issue, and it's like water's a big issue within the region, depending on whether the desalination
Right.
plants get hit. But oil and natural gas is the global issue here.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
Well,
what do
well,
you
you
think is
heard
going to happen on the oil and natural gas front if this
well,
keeps going in the same direction?
U.S. is okay. I mean, price will go up unless the government ceilings are set. Europe is, pardon my French, is fucked. I mean, there's no other word to describe this, but it's so royally fucked at this point. Um, Pardon anybody that gets offended, but that's just the perfect word for this. There's nothing
Yeah.
else to describe these idiots. So, I mean, physically, there's not enough oil on the market now. I mean, just
Right.
physically, 20% of the world's oil or 25% of the world's oil is coming through there. It's not going anymore, including
And what happens
Iranian
if
oil.
the Houthis shut down the Red Sea? Then you're
Oh,
up to
yeah.
what, 35%?
Well, Russia and the extra Russian oil that was going dark and then being reshipped to Europe through India or whoever, Greeks, it's all going to go to China to make up for the losses for now, temporary losses from Iran. 'Cause, I mean, they both feed China, right? Russia and Iran. So that's just going to go there. So that's gone. Um, and
I
then
guess, and Putin said he's going to cut off the natural gas.
so that's 17% of EU's natural gas. It really still is, mostly LNG.
Yep.
And then 20 more percent Qatar is out. So that's
Yep.
37% of so that's a third of their natural gas is gone. That's it. Gone.
And they don't seem to have any plans for it.
No,
I mean, the Duran was joking that they'll react by sanctioning Russia again, but
yeah, probably. What
but
else?
it's like I mean, it's like what are what's their plans? I mean, do they expect the U.S. to send a bunch? I mean, it seems that nobody has a plan for what happens 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks from now if this is still ongoing.
I think their plan is we're gonna eat cake. Why don't you eat some cake? You know how
Yeah,
that turns out. That's a Western
exactly.
European tradition. Eat cake. Oh,
Yeah.
wait.
I mean, it could be a degree of destabilization that people have not considered at all. Not only the whole model of Dubai seems dead, because no matter what happens, let's say you've got peace deal or something else, who's going to trust that Dubai is safe now?
Oh,
I can't
nobody.
see that being the case.
But here's another one though for the Europeans. Now, they've banned buying Russian fertilizer. Russia produces like 40% of the world's fertilizer, chemical fertilizer. They can't produce it themselves because gas is already too expensive. Now it's even more expensive. No
Mm,
fertilizer means cut your crops in half,
right.
starvation.
And
You
that's
may
already
have
going to
starvation in Europe.
Yeah, I mean that's already going to happen in places like the UAE and other places with all
Oh
these
yeah,
foreign
yeah.
worker. What do you think? Do you think? I mean, you've worked on some of these places with a lot of foreign workers. Do the foreign workers stay, or do they try to get out as soon as they can? Do they? Because the whole deal was you're going to get these extra pay and so forth. They're treated terribly, but it's better than they think in their home country. But do they stay if they think they're in the middle of a region that might get bombed to oblivion or that economically is no longer viable, like say Dubai?
It all depends. I mean, I've been in those areas, but I never actually worked there. I turned it down because Aramco was offering. But I'm like, I'm Orthodox. I have daughters on top of that, and if as long as you stay in your compound, it's like little America. That's where all the foreigners
Right.
stay. You walk out of there, well, all the white foreigners. I mean, and not necessarily they're white skinned, but they're from white countries. There's a
Mm,
reason I'm saying this. Once you get out, then head to toe and all that. It's like
right.
hell no,
Yeah.
so, ain't worth the money. Um, but they consider everybody slaves.
Mm,
You're just different categories of slaves. So you get some Bangladeshi. He's the bottom of the rung slave. His life isn't worth anything. He's a cheap slave. He falls off scaffolding. I mean, when they had was it UAE had the World Cup, they were losing a couple people every day getting killed. They don't care. They're not real people. They're Bangladeshi slaves or Indian slaves or Pakistani slaves. They're like bottom of the rung. Doesn't matter if they're Muslim, Hindu, or whomever. And then you have different ranks as you go up, and you go up into like petroleum engineers from the white countries, the U.S., UK, whatever. They're high-end slaves because they're expensive. So if an Arab citizen gets in a car wreck with a high-end slave, the high-end slave always loses. But the high-end slave gets in a car wreck with, say, somebody lower on the rung, they always lose. The higher you, it's a totem pole.
mm,
So I don't know how much loyalty anybody would have. I mean, bullets are flying. I want out. They're not paying me enough
right.
for this. As far as places like Qatar, where you get 500,000 population Arabs abusing the crap out of 9 million mostly combat aged men.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could get interesting. Could get
And
really,
these
really
regimes could
interesting.
collapse in a heartbeat. The And then how are the Saudi? I mean, what is it? 25% of this of Saudi Arabia is Shia. What happens if there's
And
a
they are the
rebellion there?
oil workers.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And if Saudi Arabia, uh, Putin talked the Saudis off the ledge
Mm,
from declaring war on Iran, because if you declare war on Iran, you're gone as a country. Yemen's going to take back its provinces, and the Yemenis are beat the crap out of the Saudis once. The Shia are going to rebel, and the Hashemites in Jordan are going to start remembering that they're the ones that are supposed to be taking care of Mecca and Medina, not the House of Saud. That
right.
country could just go, no more
Exactly.
Saudi
And then
Arabia.
you've got all the princes that are still unhappy with MBS, the ones
Yeah,
he locked up in the Four Seasons and all that. There's some personal vendettas yet to be delivered.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
Somebody
wow.
else might
Well,
be getting chopped up and dissolved in a basement somewhere in
I
sulfuric
know,
acid.
I know. He'll get the Khashoggi treatment. The
Oh.
well, as the Chinese proverbs say, we do live in interesting times.
Yeah, yeah. Can we go back?
Hopefully, we can just survive.
I had to explain that to friends or coworkers that go to China and all that. Oh yeah, the Chinese wish we'd all live in interesting times.
No, yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
bad. That's bad.
You're
Why?
right.
It's going to be interesting. It's like, okay, let me explain to you what interesting means. Like,
Yes,
oh, like, yes. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's bad. They don't like you. Just take that as they don't like you.
exactly. But yeah, I gotta hop on another thing here
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
quick.
I got to get some sleep
And
myself. It's
yeah,
two
yeah,
in the
yeah, get some
morning.
sleep.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope we didn't bore you. I hope you had a fun time listening to us. If you have any
Absolutely.
questions, Robert will have the link in YouTube, so put comments in the comment section. I know it's a no-brainer. If you got any questions, put them in there too, and we'll answer them.
Will
Everybody,
do.
thank you. Robert, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.